All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, complicated institutions on the planet, the United States Congress. We're going to break down its core design, peek into its hidden machinery, and look at the rules that literally shape American law. Okay, let's get into it.
So, it all boils down to this, right? You have just 535 people, 435 in the House, 100 in the Senate. And they're the ones writing the rulebook for over 330 million of us. How does that system even begin to work? How is all that power structured and balanced? Well, let's take a look at the blueprint. The entire system, and I mean the whole thing, is built on this one really clever idea the founders had. It was a compromise that gave us not one, but two legislative houses. And this was no accident, believe me. It was a very deliberate design choice meant to balance all these competing interests right from the get-go.
And the official term for that design is a bicameral legislature. You know, it sounds kind of fancy, but the goal was to solve a massive problem they were having. Should representation be based on how many people live in a state, which would favor the big states, or should every state get an equal vote protecting the small ones? Their solution was basically, well, why not do both?
And this table just lays that compromise out perfectly. On one side, you have the House of Representatives. Think of it as the pulse of the nation. Representation is based on population, and the really short 2-year terms mean its members are always thinking about what their voters want, right now. But then you have the Senate, a totally different vibe. It was designed to be the cooling saucer, a more deliberative place. Every single state gets 2 senators, no matter how big or small, and their longer 6-year terms are supposed to give them the breathing room to tackle long-term issues, away from the day-to-day passions of the public.
So yeah, in the House, you've got this churning body of 435 members. Every single one of them is there to fight for the people in their specific district, their own little slice of America. It makes the House this fast-paced, sometimes chaotic place that really reflects the country's immediate wants and needs.
But in the Senate, the magic number is always 2. California, with almost 40 million people, gets the exact same number of senators as Wyoming, which is less than 600,000. It's a structure that makes sure the less populated states don't just get drowned out by the bigger ones.
Okay, so if the House is based on population, that leads to a pretty big question. How do we figure out who gets how many of those 435 seats? Well, that brings us to the super important process of drawing, and sometimes redrawing, the entire country's political map.
It's a 3-step dance that happens every 10 years. First, you have the census, where they try to count every single person in the country. Then, based on those new numbers, we have reapportionment, which is just reslicing that 435-seat pie. Some states might gain a seat or 2, others might lose one. And finally, the states have to do redistricting, where they actually redraw the lines for all those congressional districts on a map.
And that last step, redistricting, is where things can get, let's just say, controversial. You've probably heard of gerrymandering. It's when those district lines get drawn in these wild, squiggly shapes for one reason, to give one political party a built-in advantage. It's a powerful political weapon, and frankly, both parties have used it for years, and it often means fewer competitive elections. Now, when we picture Congress, we usually think of some big speech on C-SPAN from the House or Senate floor. But honestly, most of the real heavy lifting, the nitty-gritty research, the debates, the actual shaping of laws, it happens out of sight. It happens in what you could call the congressional engine room. Its committees.
And you can't overstate the power these committees have. I mean, this quote right here says it all. A bill doesn't need some big dramatic floor vote to fail. Nope, it can just be quietly set aside, never even scheduled for a hearing, and effectively killed by a handful of members in a committee. It dies before most of Congress ever even sees it.
So, Congress splits up its insane workload into 4 main kinds of committees. You've got your permanent standing committees, think agriculture or armed services, that handle most of the bills. Then you have select committees, which are temporary groups set up for a specific job, like an investigation. Joint committees have members from both the House and the Senate. And then there are the super important conference committees, which get formed to hammer out a single unified bill when the House and Senate pass different versions. And keeping all of this running is a massive, unseen workforce of thousands of people. Every congressperson has their own personal staff, helping with everything from answering emails to researching policy. The committees have their own dedicated experts. And on top of that, there are entire nonpartisan support agencies like the Congressional Budget Office that just provide objective data to help lawmakers make better decisions.
So we have the people and we have the committees, but none of it moves without a rulebook. And in Washington, you learn pretty quickly that procedure can be just as powerful as policy. Sometimes the rules themselves become the whole fight. And there's no better example of that than the Senate filibuster. This is a tactic that only exists in the Senate. Because the Senate allows for pretty much unlimited debate, a single senator can basically grind the entire place to a halt just by standing up and talking and talking and talking. It's literally called talking a bill to death, and it stops a vote from happening unless you can get a supermajority of 60 senators to agree to stop the debate.
And man, is the filibuster controversial. This slide shows you the two sides of the coin. Opponents say it's completely undemocratic, that it creates total gridlock and lets a small minority block what the majority of people want. But its defenders say, whoa, hold on. They argue it's a crucial tool that protects the minority party's rights, forces people to compromise, and stops really radical laws from being passed in the heat of the moment. So, after looking at all these different pieces, the two chambers, the committees, the staff, the rules, why does this old blueprint still matter so much? How does this design from centuries ago actually work in the 21st century?
Well, when you put it all together, you start to see the big picture. Congress is a system built on intentional trade-offs. You've got that constant balancing act between the people and the states. The real action isn't on the floor, it's in those powerful committees, which are run by an army of experts. And the whole game can be controlled by procedural rules that are sometimes even more powerful than a simple vote.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. The entire structure we've been talking about was designed to slow things down, to force debate, and to push people toward compromise. So in the hyperpolarized, fast-moving world we live in today, you have to ask yourself, is that design still a feature that protects us? Or has it become a bug that just leads to endless gridlock? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.